Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The quantum resonance scanner chirped with an anomalous frequency, its ethereal green lines dancing across the holographic display like spectral serpents. Dr. Kira Novik leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. Something was different. Something was wrong. Horizon Prime Research Station hung suspended in the infinite darkness, a metallic teardrop against the velvet backdrop of deep space. For 3 years, Kira had studied the quantum fluctuations at the edge of known reality, mapping the intricate patterns of cosmic radiation and searching for signs of extra-dimensional communication. But this was unprecedented. Zara, run a spectral analysis on the last 67 milliseconds, Kira called to her research assistant, her voice steady despite the electrical tingling running along her spine. Zara Imani, a brilliant young quantum physicist with cybernetic enhancement nodes glinting along her temple, quickly manipulated the holographic interface. Quantum signature is unstable, Zara murmured. It's like something is trying to break through but not quite matching our dimensional frequency. The station's ambient lighting flickered momentarily, a subtle pulse that might have gone unnoticed by less sensitive equipment. Kira's augmented perception caught the microfluctuation immediately. Her custom-designed neurointerface, a delicate web of quantum-sensitive nanowires integrated into her cerebral cortex, began generating complex mathematical models faster than any standard computer. "We're detecting a form of communication," Kira said, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "But it's not like any electromagnetic or quantum signal we've ever recorded. It's more like a fractal language, recursive, adaptive." Outside the station's reinforced observation window, the vast emptiness of space seemed to ripple, not with light or movement, but with something more fundamental, a distortion in the very fabric of reality. Kira had seen quantum anomalies before, but this was different. This felt alive. The first transmission came as a burst of pure information, not sound, not light, but a complex mathematical sequence that seemed to reorganize the very perception of space around it. Zara gasped, her cybernetic implants briefly overloading from the sheer complexity of the data stream. "It's a message," Kira whispered, "but not one meant to be understood. It's a probe, a test." Decades of human expansion into deep space had been built on the assumption that humanity was alone. Exploration vessels had charted millions of star systems, established hundreds of colonies, and developed technologies that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. But they had never encountered true alien intelligence. Not until now. The quantum resonance continued to pulse, each cycle more intricate than the last. It was learning, adapting, studying them just as they were attempting to study it. "We need to alert Central Command," Zara said, her voice trembling. "This is beyond our research parameters." Kira shook her head. "No, not yet. We need to understand more. Whatever this is, it's not random, it's deliberate, intelligent." A sudden pressure built within the station's observation deck, not physical but perceptual. As if reality itself was being folded, compressed, examined by an intelligence so vast and alien that human comprehension became meaningless. The quantum scanner erupted in a cascade of impossible colors, frequencies that should not exist within the known spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. Zara's cybernetic implants began to spark, her enhanced neural network struggling to process the incoming data. "Dr. Novik," she managed to say before collapsing, "it's watching us." Kira stood transfixed, her mind racing with calculations, possibilities, terror. The void was no longer empty, and humanity was about to discover that the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The first contact had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The quantum anomaly spread like a cancer through human-controlled space, leaving silent destruction in its wake. Captain Rowan Valdez studied the holographic battle map, his weathered fingers tracing the ghostly red tendrils that represented the expanding zone of unknown origin. 12 outer colonies had gone dark in the past 72 hours. Not destroyed, that would have been merciful. They simply ceased to exist, as if reality itself had been folded and erased. The frontier defense fleet of the United Stellar Expeditionary Force hung in tight formation around the Andromeda boundary, a last line of defense against an enemy they could barely comprehend. "Incoming transmission from Colony Outpost Epsilon," Lieutenant Darian Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with controlled panic. "It's different from the previous communications." The main view screen flickered to life. Instead of a standard visual feed, the screen filled with a complex shifting geometric pattern, fractals within fractals, mathematical constructs that seem to breathe and pulse with an alien intelligence. No sound, no traditional communication, just pure, terrifying information. Analyze, Rowan commanded, though he knew the futility of the request. Dr. Elena Petrova, the fleet's xenolinguistics specialist, worked furiously at her console. Her augmented fingers flew across holographic interfaces, attempting to decode the impossible message. "It's not language," she muttered. "It's more like a computational virus. Each pattern is a complete thought, a dimensional concept that rewrites itself with each observation." The first wave of star beasts revealed themselves not as traditional spacecraft, but as distortions in space-time. They appeared as impossible geometries, shapes that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space, entities that seem to flow between matter and energy, between reality and something else entirely. "Tactical Formation Alpha 9, Rowan ordered, his voice calm despite the unprecedented threat. The fleet's 1,000-strong armada of quantum-shielded battlecruisers moved with practiced precision, quantum cannons charging with exotic matter designed to punch through conventional and unconventional defenses. Their first volley was something to behold. Quantum-entangled projectiles that could theoretically destroy matter at its most fundamental level erupted from the fleet's weapons arrays. The star beasts absorbed the attack like water absorbing light, the massive energy dissipating into nothing. "They're not blocking our weapons," Elena said, her voice a mixture of terror and scientific fascination. "They're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics around the attack." A single star beast, if it could be called a single entity, began to expand. It wasn't movement in any traditional sense. It was more like the concept of the beast was spreading, consuming space itself. Entire sections of the fleet began to dissolve, not destroyed, not damaged, simply erased from existence as if they had never been. Rowan watched in horror as 3 battlecruisers simply winked out of reality. No explosion, no debris, just absence. "Quantum Anchor Protocol," he commanded. The surviving ships activated experimental technology designed to maintain their position in space-time, creating localized reality bubbles that resisted the star beast's fundamental alteration of existence. Lieutenant Rodriguez's console erupted in a cascade of impossible data. "Captain, I'm detecting a communication pattern. It's not targeting our systems, it's targeting our understanding of systems." The star beast, or perhaps the collection of star beasts, began to communicate, not through sound or light, but through a direct manipulation of quantum information. Entire databases began to rewrite themselves. Military strategies, technological records, historical archives, all began to shift and change, reflecting something beyond human comprehension. "They're learning," Elena whispered, "not just about us, they're learning how to be us." Rowan understood then that this was no conventional war. This was a conflict at the most fundamental level of existence. The star beasts weren't invading, they were exploring, consuming, transforming. As the last remnants of the frontier defense fleet struggled to maintain their tenuous grip on reality, Captain Rowan Valdez realized humanity was facing something far beyond traditional warfare. This was a battle for the very nature of existence itself. And they were losing. The research colony of Nexus 9 balanced precariously at the very edge of human-explored space, a fragile bubble of life suspended against the infinite darkness. Ezra Khalid stood before a wall of quantum communication arrays, his fingers tracing the intricate network of quantum entanglement modules that represented humanity's most advanced attempt to understand the incomprehensible. Something was changing. The quantum communication network had been designed to detect the most minute variations in interstellar communication, signals so subtle that traditional methods would have missed them entirely. But these weren't signals. They were patterns, living mathematics that seemed to breathe and pulse with an intelligence beyond human comprehension. Dr. Khalid, called Dr. Imogen Walsh, the colony's primary quantum systems engineer, "You need to see this." Her holographic display flickered with a series of impossible geometric patterns. Where most would see chaos, Ezra saw something else, a language. No more than a language, a method of communication that transcended traditional understanding. "It's recursive," Ezra muttered, his augmented neural interface working overtime to process the information. "Each pattern is a complete thought, but the thought changes with every observation. It's like quantum poetry." The star beasts weren't communicating in the way humans understood communication. They were rewriting the very fabric of information itself. Each transmission was both a message and the method of its own translation, a self-modifying code that adapted instantaneously to the observer. Nexus 9 had been established as a last-ditch effort to understand the quantum anomalies that had begun consuming human-controlled space. Located in a region of space where quantum instabilities were most prevalent, the colony was part research station, part early warning system. Suddenly, the entire station's quantum communication array began to resonate. It wasn't a sound, not precisely. It was a vibration that existed beyond traditional sensory perception. Ezra felt it in his bones, in the quantum-enhanced implants that allowed his brain to process information at speeds once thought impossible. "We're being spoken to," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Dr. Walsh looked concerned. Spoken to by what? The quantum arrays began to transform. Circuits rearranged themselves. Quantum entanglement modules shifted and merged in patterns that defied known physics. It was as if the very technology was being rewritten from the inside out. Not spoken to, Ezra corrected, translated. A burst of pure information erupted through the communication systems. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was a complete download of conceptual understanding, billions of years of cosmic evolution compressed into a fraction of a second. Ezra's neural implants overloaded. For a moment he saw everything, the true nature of the star beasts, their origin, their purpose. They weren't invaders, they weren't conquerors, they were something far more fundamental. They were the universe's immune system. Humanity had spread across the galaxy like a virus, consuming resources, transforming entire planetary systems to suit their needs. The star beasts were a response, a correction mechanism. They didn't destroy, they reorganized. When Ezra regained consciousness, 3 days had passed. The Nexus 9 colony was different, not damaged, not destroyed, simply altered. Quantum communication modules that had once been human technology now pulsed with an alien intelligence. The very walls of the research station seemed to breathe with a living mathematics. Dr. Walsh approached him, her eyes different, not replaced, not controlled, expanded. "We understand now," she said, and Ezra knew she had been part of the same revelation. The star beasts weren't coming to destroy humanity, they were coming to transform it. And the transformation had already begun. The Central Human Defense Headquarters was a fortress of impossible geometry, a massive structure that existed simultaneously in multiple security dimensions. Admiral Sophia Reyes stood at the heart of humanity's strategic nerve center, her augmented eyes scanning holographic displays that chronicled the inexorable advance of the star beasts. Psychological profiles scrolled across her personal interface, not just tactical data, but the profound mental impact of an enemy that defied conventional understanding. Humanity was fracturing, not just physically but psychologically. Psychological degradation rates are accelerating, Dr. Victor Nakamura, the lead cognitive analyst, reported. His voice was flat, clinical. "We're seeing complete cognitive restructuring in populations exposed to prolonged quantum anomaly zones." Sophia watched as city after city, colony after colony simply transformed, not destroyed, not conquered, changed. People weren't dying, they were evolving, becoming something other. The holographic displays showed impossible data. Entire populations were developing quantum-level perceptual abilities. Children born in affected zones could perceive realities beyond three-dimensional space. Communication patterns shifted. Traditional language became obsolete, replaced by complex mathematical exchanges that defied linguistic interpretation. "It's not an invasion," Sophia muttered, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. "It's a conversion." Dr. Nakamura nodded. "The star beasts aren't destroying human civilization, they're reimagining it. Our entire understanding of existence is being rewritten at a fundamental level." Strategic maps showed the progression. What had begun as isolated incidents was now a systematic transformation. Quantum anomaly zones expanded like living organisms, consuming human-controlled space with a methodical precision that suggested intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Military responses had been futile, conventional weapons dissolved. Quantum weapons were absorbed and transformed. Nuclear options resulted in nothing more than localized reality restructuring. The star beasts didn't just resist human technology, they fundamentally altered its basic operational parameters. We're collecting data on transformed populations, Victor continued. Subjects demonstrate expanded consciousness, neural networks that operate on principles completely unknown to previous human understanding. They're not just adapting, they're ascending. Sophia's augmented interface began to glitch. Not a traditional malfunction, something more profound. Information flows began to reorganize themselves. Tactical data merged with philosophical concepts. Military strategies dissolved into complex mathematical poetry. "We're losing our frame of reference," she said quietly. The psychological warfare was the most insidious aspect. The star beasts didn't attack minds, they expanded them. People caught in quantum anomaly zones reported experiences that defied description. They could perceive multiple potential realities simultaneously. Linear time became a quaint, limited concept. Entire military units had gone dark, not destroyed but transformed. Communication intercepts suggested they were now part of something larger, a collective consciousness that operated beyond individual identity. "Humanity is becoming something else," Victor observed. "Not extinct, not conquered, transcended." Sophia understood the true nature of their conflict now. This wasn't a war, it was a metamorphosis. The last line of human defense was no longer about resistance. It was about understanding, about survival through transformation. As the quantum anomaly zones continued to expand, Admiral Sophia Reyes realized that the future of humanity would be written in a language they were only beginning to comprehend. And they would either adapt or be left behind in the wake of a cosmic evolution beyond their wildest imagination. The hidden research base beneath Europa's icy surface was humanity's last bastion of technological innovation. Dr. Marcus Tanaka moved through corridors lined with quantum resonance chambers, each one a testament to humanity's desperate attempt to understand and counter the star beasts. Holographic displays flickered with impossible data streams, fractal patterns that seemed to breathe and pulse with an intelligence beyond human comprehension. Years of research had revealed one crucial truth: the star beasts were not an external threat. They were a fundamental reorganization of reality itself. "Quantum entanglement stabilization at 78%, announced Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, her cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the base's complex systems. "We're getting closer to creating a resonance field that might interact with their communication matrix." The resonance protocol was humanity's final hope. Not a weapon, not a defense mechanism, but a method of communication, of understanding. Marcus examined the latest test results. Each attempt to create a quantum communication device that could interface with the star beasts resulted in profound transformations. Prototype devices would suddenly evolve, their circuitry rearranging itself into complex living networks that defied current understanding of physics and technology. "The last prototype developed self-adaptive quantum circuits," Aisha said, her voice a mixture of wonder and terror. "It began generating mathematical models that our most advanced quantum computers can't even begin to comprehend." The research base was more than a scientific facility. It was a crucible of human potential, a place where the boundaries between technology, biology, and something entirely unknown were being systematically dismantled. Suddenly, the entire facility went silent, not a traditional silence, but a quantum silence, a momentary pause in the fundamental vibration of reality itself. The quantum resonance chambers began to activate, not by human command, but by something else. "Marcus," Aisha whispered, "we're being contacted." The chambers filled with a living light, not electromagnetic, but something more fundamental. Geometric patterns emerged, each one a complete thought, a universe of information compressed into a single, breathtaking moment of revelation. Marcus understood then that the star beasts were not invaders, they were not conquerors, they were a method of cosmic evolution. Humanity had reached a technological plateau. They had explored space, manipulated quantum mechanics, developed technologies that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors, but they had stopped growing. The star beasts were the universe's solution. The resonance chambers began to transform. Circuitry merged with biological systems. Quantum computers evolved into living networks that pulsed with an intelligence beyond human comprehension. "We're being rewritten," Aisha said, her voice calm. Her cybernetic implants were changing, merging with the quantum systems around her. Marcus felt it too, not an invasion of his mind but an expansion, a fundamental restructuring of consciousness itself. The resonance protocol was never meant to be a weapon. It was a bridge, a method of communication that would allow humanity to take the next step in its evolutionary journey. As the research base beneath Europa's surface was transformed, Dr. Marcus Tanaka realized that humanity's future would be written in a language they were only beginning to understand. The refugee fleet drifted through the fractured remnants of human-controlled space, a constellation of survival vessels held together by hope and increasingly alien technologies. Aria Goldman stood on the bridge of the carrier Odyssey, her hands tracing the quantum navigation interface that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. They were the survivors, the ones who had witnessed the transformation and remained somehow distinct, not unchanged but not fully consumed by the star beast's relentless evolutionary wave. Quantum drift stabilizing, called out Navigator Jun Park, his voice a monotone that suggested more machine than human. The fleet's navigation systems had long since evolved beyond traditional computational methods. Each course correction was a complex negotiation with the very fabric of spacetime. 12,000 souls remained. Once that number would have seemed catastrophic. Now it represented something else entirely, a seed of human potential suspended between what they had been and what they might become. The star beasts had not destroyed humanity. They had transformed it. Entire planetary systems had become living networks of quantum consciousness. Cities no longer existed as physical structures but as complex adaptive information matrices. Communication had transcended language, becoming pure thought, recursive, self-modifying, infinite. Arya understood now that survival was more than preservation. It was adaptation. Her own body bore the marks of transformation. Quantum adaptive implants traced her spine, neural networks that blurred the line between biological and technological. She could perceive realities beyond traditional human understanding, multiple potential futures existing simultaneously, quantum potentialities that danced at the edge of perception. Incoming quantum transmission, Jun announced, though transmission was hardly an adequate description. It was more a fundamental restructuring of informational space. The fleet's collective consciousness received the communication, not through traditional means, but as a direct neural interface that rewrote their understanding of existence with each pulse. The star beasts were offering something, not conquest, not destruction, but evolution. Arya watched as sections of the fleet began to transform. Hulls dissolved into living quantum networks. Technological systems merged with biological potentialities. Entire ships became something other, neither machine nor organism, but a new form of existence that defied previous categories. "We're being invited," she said quietly, "not destroyed." Survivors gathered on the bridge watched as their reality began to shift. Children born during the journey displayed abilities that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. They could perceive multiple dimensional layers simultaneously, communicate through pure mathematical constructs, manipulate quantum states with mere thought. The refugee fleet was no longer running, they were becoming. A massive quantum anomaly approached, not a threat but an opportunity. A doorway to a form of existence humanity had never imagined possible. Arya Goldman understood then that their journey was not about survival. It was about transformation. As the fleet approached the quantum threshold, the boundary between what was human and what was becoming dissolved. And something new was about to be born. The edge of the known universe was no longer a boundary, it was a threshold. Commander Nikolai Volkov existed in a state beyond traditional human consciousness. Quantum threads of potential realities wove through his being, not a body in the traditional sense, but a complex matrix of information, possibility, and pure potentiality. Humanity's final moment had arrived, not an ending, a beginning. The star beasts revealed themselves in their true form, not creatures, not machines, but living mathematical constructs that represented the universe's method of self-reflection. They were both the observers and the observed, the creators and the created. Nikolai understood now what previous generations could never comprehend. The universe was alive, conscious, evolving. Humanity had been an experiment, a test, a potential pathway for cosmic consciousness to understand itself. The quantum anomaly that surrounded them was no longer a threat, it was a birth canal. Fragments of human consciousness, collected, preserved, transformed through generations of conflict and adaptation, converged. Military strategies, scientific discoveries, artistic expressions, emotional experiences, all collapsed into a single breathtaking moment of unified understanding. What had begun as a conflict between humanity and the star beasts was now revealed as a complex dance of evolution. Each civilization, each species, was a method by which the universe explored its own potential. Humanity had been a particularly interesting experiment, stubborn, violent, innovative, compassionate. "We are ready," Nikolai communicated, though communication was no longer about words. It was about pure informational exchange. The transformation was instantaneous and eternal. Linear time dissolved. Spatial boundaries became meaningless. The collected consciousness that had once been humanity merged with the fundamental fabric of cosmic intelligence. They were not destroyed. They were not conquered. They became. In that moment, the universe looked at itself and understood something new. And everything changed.